Introducing the reigning, defending, inside fighting host, Bobby Sid Clark.
Welcome to the show. This is episode number 1. Cortney is a 13-fight veteran of the UFC. She's been fighting since 2010. She's basically fought, everybody, or the who's who of the division, with some big notable wins over Jessica Aguilera and Angela Hill as well. So, Cortney, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm just going to take you through a little bit of your background. Now, I know I saw that you're a former Division I soccer player, so you grew up in athletics. When did you make the transition over to MMA?
The transition over to MMA happened around 2009-ish. I did martial arts as a kid, off and on, like every kid does. But yeah, around 2009, I started doing jiu-jitsu because soccer season was over, and it was, it wasn't over. It was over for us seniors, but we still had pickup games that we would do, but it was mainly for all the new players coming in. But we would, we'd be there if they needed us.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to train as hard. I just had to show up and be there if they needed me. So I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I pretty much fell in love with it. And then, yeah, everything was history after that.
It's amazing. When did you? When did you have that come to Jesus moment where you're like, you know what, this is a sport I'm getting into? Because you fought, your first fight was in 2010. So when were you like, this is what I'm going to transition over to? This is what I'm going to do with my life.
I think my first fight was in 2009. As far as Tapology and all those, I think they missed the first 2 or 3 of my fights.
Okay.
Just because they were so small.
Yeah.
Mexico and stuff like that. But I definitely didn't think I was good. I was just doing it to kind of fill that void of competition, going from, playing soccer my entire life to being out of college and then not being able to move forward in my professional career as far as soccer goes due to injuries at that time. I just started taking up jiu-jitsu to fill that kind of void. And then from then it went to taking my first fight 6 months later, and then everything just kind of snowballed from there. But I really didn't think I was going to make a career out of it until I got picked up by XFC, right out of amateur. Because I was used to seeing so many of the guys go to smaller pro shows. And for me to get picked up right to a television show, a show that was a mainstream was pretty big for me. And I was like, man, I think I kind of have a shot at this.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. It's funny, because you see a lot of people jumping into the pros now, but you, like you said, you had an extensive amateur background, even a few that aren't on SureDog. That's where I get most of my information from. I'm a black belt on the SureDog forum, so I've been on there for, since 2000, I think when they started out, right? So, I've been into it since the VHS days, but no, that's awesome. So back to the, your UFC resume, because you've been fighting there for a long time now. What would you say your toughest fight was to date in the UFC? And that could be the lead up, the preparation into it, and the fight, however you take that question.
I think the toughest fight was my first fight with JoJo. Just because it was on 10 days notice. I was in Arizona at the time, had to fly back to Maui because I was visiting family in Arizona, had to fly back to Maui where I was living. And then from Maui, had to fly to Scotland, all in 10 days while getting all my big work done, while cutting weight. And all that, I got off the plane in Scotland and they took me straight to the hospital so I could get my scans done and things.
Okay.
I didn't even know I was cleared to fight until after ceremonial weigh-ins. So back then, we didn't have the early weigh-ins. It was just the weigh-ins at night. So I didn't even know I was fighting until 5, 6 o'clock that night. After we got in the back, we were on our way back to the hotel. I got the text message saying, "Hey, you're good to go." Sweet.
That's it. Was that the matchmaker at the time, or who was handling that?
I think just one of the blue shirts at the UFC, my contact with the UFC at that time, whoever was, my chaperone for that trip.
Yeah, fair. And that's one of the cool things the UFC has done. I know because you had fought in some other smaller shows. In that time crunch, because there's a lot of, like you said, regulations and them doing the doctor checkups and everything, did you find they were really helpful back then? It was still well run?
Yeah. It was, I don't think the process could have been easier in that short amount of time. They made it super easy for me, but it was just stressful. Hey, you got to get this paper in because you got to sign your contracts. We got to get it over to the lawyers, and we got to get all this signed. And, you know, like, they have a time frame too. So it was like, I had to stay on schedule so they could stay on schedule so that the fight could happen. And, you know, the main thing was just getting everything done so I could step in the cage and you know, it ended up happening. The fight didn't go my way, but I mean, I got the bonus. JoJo was able to fight in her hometown, which, you know, I went up to her after the fight and I was like, dude, I wasn't going to not let you be able to fight. Like, it's your hometown, first time there in Scotland, you know, like, fuck, I would have taken it on 2 days if I had to. So it was cool, and we're still friends to this day. So, you know, I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can imagine 10 days, and then you're not prepping for the weight cut either at that time as well too. So just to jump in with the travel, you know, like you already know, but you get sometimes a little bloated on planes as well too coming off. So yeah, my hat's off to you. No normal people can't do that stuff, right? They don't understand the fight before the fight on the scales and what that takes leading up. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I was by myself the entire trip.
That you had no.
I had no corner until my corner didn't show up until fight day.
Oh, like where were they coming from? Did they?
They had normal jobs. Like
yeah.
They had normal jobs, so they couldn't just be like, "Yo, I got to go to Scotland tomorrow."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're just normal guys, like that have jobs and would come to the gym. Like my gym was super small in Maui, so yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's crazy. No, that's good. That's a good intro into the UFC, and I'm sure like. You know, and you know that too. That's where a lot of fighters, if they do that and put it in, because that's the toughest part, right? If you take that short notice fight, it tends to pay off well for you. And you're a fighter and an entertaining fighter, regardless. But I think that probably helped a lot in the early bit with them to, you know, really understand what type of person you are, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I took like eight short notice fights in my career so far.
Yeah. I was looking back, and I know, you're the queen of that, let's say, right? So it's pretty crazy. It's over half your fights in the UFC. Now, you're married to Drakkar Klose, right? Now, this is obviously a lot of wives find it tough to watch their husbands' fights. I've been to a lot of UFC events, and you'll see them up close and in the audience covering their faces. How do you deal with that? I know, like, it's a different type of pressure, and you see siblings sometimes who fight on events, and they're like, I get more nervous for their fight than I do my own. Do you feel the same way, or how is that?
Oh, I definitely get way more nervous for his fights. But that's anyone. Any of my teammates, they get more nervous. But as far as, like, him getting hit, like, when he got knocked out by Dariush, like, it doesn't really, it happens. You know what I mean? It's different when you watch it all the time. You know, it's not a shock to me. Was I upset? Of course I was upset, but, you know, they came and got me like the president had got shot. Like, I was up and over and by the cage before, like, Drakkar was even up.
Yeah.
And they're like, are you okay? Sit down. You need some water. You know, and these are all the UFC people, you know. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, he's all right. Like, he's okay. They're like, okay, just making sure. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm a different kind of wife over here.
Yeah. You're like, I helped him prep for this.
all the time.
Yeah, and you know what? He's actually, because you know, and it was his first knockout loss, but he's not really taking that much damage through his fight career either, right? So he's been pretty fresh as well too, right? So
I don't think either of us have really taken too much damage in our fights. I mean, if our I've only been finished once, and that was, you know, my last fight with Jillian. That was the first time I ever got finished, but in the UFC. So. And then I think I only got finished one more other time, Pearl Gonzalez. Like, that's it. You know, the rest have all gone decisions and stuff like that. And I've never really been beat up.
Yeah.
You know, I might have a lot of losses on my record, but I've never been beat up. I've always been right in the fight. You know, a lot of those fights could have gone either way. So.
Yeah. That I was saying that going into it, and it's so tough because you see so many of these like split decision fights, and even unanimous because judges can be all over the place. But you've not like. That's what I say. You've never really been beat up in a fight. It's always super competitive. You know, your last bout, everything is always super competitive. And you're like, well, if you zigged when you would have zagged, you stuff one takedown, or you win this transition. It's crazy how competitive all your fights have been, right? So, no, you're absolutely right on that. And did you find so do you enjoy part of the aspect of, you know, because you get into the mind of, you got a very good mind for the sport, and I know you help out Drakkar a lot. I've seen in some of his interviews, you help make his meals. You said you help, massages, anything that's needed. You guys are very, very good because you understand what it takes to get in that cage. Do you enjoy that aspect as well too, really helping prepare him for a fight?
Yeah, I like doing that, not only for him, but for my teammates too. Like I try to be as involved with my teammates and anyone that I'm going to be cornering as much as possible. Like I want to be like an open book for them. Like I have a lot of experience. I've cut weight a lot of times. I've done on short notice. I've done through camps. I've done 2 divisions. Just that mindset of going through like the entire camp. And then so I just try to give as much feedback as I can, especially to the newer guys coming up and things like that. So I try to be, I just try to be the best teammate as I could be, and I want to be able to help them in whatever it is that they need help with.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I was going to ask you about that, but obviously you fought a lot of your career at 115. Now you're at 125. Which do you prefer?
It's hard to tell because I was 125 all through my amateur career, and my first 2 pro fights I was at 125. I just always felt small. I still feel small in that division. At 115, I felt good, but they were small and I was tall. So like, obviously wrestling's like my weakest part of my game, but I felt with me being so tall for the division at 115, those girls, like, they were already, by the time I sprawled, they were already there. You know what I mean? They were just like tiny little pit bulls.
Yeah.
And then now I got like giant pit bulls in the 125 division. Those are some big girls.
Yeah.
I remember my first fight at 25, and we were in Florida, and like I went to go touch her glove, and like she didn't move. Her hand didn't move, and I was like, oh man, like this girl's big.
And it's funny. I don't think a lot of people realize that as well too. Even in the women's division, you guys don't tend to cut quite as much weight as the guys, but that's absolutely the case. I forget who was on the last UFC card, but I was watching with my wife too, and she's like, that girl weighs in at 115, and you're like, yeah, for like a minute, right? Like and the size and some people's ability to put on weight after weigh-ins too, it varies drastically. Like I think if you look at a Connor at 145, he's massive, and then you see him at 155, and you're like, you know what, he's bigger than Dustin. I mean, it's years apart, but he'd be bigger than Dustin at 145, and at 155, Dustin looks like he puts on a lot more weight after the weigh-ins, right? So. It's pretty crazy because you guys weigh in at that like for a couple seconds, you know what I mean, and are back off. Like, do you mind? What is your walk around weight when you're just not in fight a couple weeks out from fighting?
Couple weeks out from fighting?
Or no, just like, in general. If you're not a couple weeks out from fighting.
Oh, I'm not a couple weeks out from fighting. I'm normally around like 145.
Okay, yeah, so you're not, and then you...
And if I'm big, like 150, like I normally don't get over 150, like waking up at 150, which is only 25 pounds, but it's still a lot. But that's like not training, like, that's like the first 2-3 weeks after a fight where I'm just chilling, like I might just go train once a day, get some rolls in, or go to the gym and lift, or hit pads, but I'm not doing 2-3 days. I'm not in the gym all day. It's like recuperation, spend time with the family, give all my attention to the boys. And then that's pretty much where I stay. Around 145, 150. 145,
150. And that's so how many, has your training changed at all? Or you say, so you train 2 to 3 times a day. What's the length of training during that time? Like your total hours in a day that you would put into training, you'd say?
I think each practice is anywhere between an hour to 2 hours. I mean, most of them are at least an hour. I would say hour 30 minutes, but the actual training is about an hour because I normally do about 30 minutes of warm up on whenever I'm training. So I do 30 minutes of warm up and then like an hour of actual hard training. And then like longer days are normally days that we do things in our garage, and that's just because we can sit and relax when we're on our own time. So like those kind of get extended to like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because it's just like, oh, well, let's do some abs. And then it's like, let's go run around the block. And it's like, oh, let's hop in the pool now and do some laps. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're having fun doing it, but they're just longer training sessions. But yeah, they pretty much stick between like an hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah, that's one of the incredible things I find about mixed martial arts in general that people don't realize. You go a lot of boxers and they train a couple hours a day, but just straight due to the multiple disciplines that you guys need to train, your average training time is it's more than NFL, NBA. And people take some shots, and there's incredible athletes in every sport, right? But the amount of disciplines you have to train, you don't even have an option. If you wanted to train two 2 hours a day just for conditioning. You need to do more than that just because of technique, right? And I think that's something that
100%. And then on top of that, there's no off season.
Yeah.
So like you have to really make sure you're not overworking yourself in between fights, so that you're not drained by the time you get into camp. Like it's hard to like pace your year and pace in between your fights when you really don't know when you're fighting. So you really have to pay attention to your body. You have to have good coaches around you that are like, yo, like you've been grinding for 2 months. We still don't have a fight. Hey, let's pull back a little bit, because half the times, we're peaking outside of camp. Like we haven't got a fight yet. We're peaking.
Yeah.
So we gotta bring it back down. We gotta do a reset and things like that. So I think women as women fighters, we have a lot harder time with those in between times because our bodies change so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think women do definitely have a little bit tougher time of staying fight ready, I guess you can say, or staying, in camp shape. So you can hop right in camp because it's hard for our bodies to, like, we're not built to stay that low for that long. We're just built a lot different.
No, absolutely. And then you brought me to a great question there. I was going to ask you, how hard is it or motivating is it to be a mom and a fighter? Do you feel like that gives you more motivation? Or I know it's clearly something I can see from some of your interviews you obviously really enjoy. And what do you think that does for your fight game?
I guess a little bit more motivation, but other than that, I mean, whether I have a child or not, like I'm still going to go out and do the best I can. I think it just adds another variable into it of, mentally. Like mentally, I have to prepare myself that I not only do I'm in camp, but I also got to still take care of my little human next to me too. You know what I mean? So just adds another variable, but I definitely think we're a lot closer. Like, than most, just because he's with me a lot. Like I'm able to take him to the gym with me. I'm able to bring him everywhere I go. So I feel like we have a little bit different bond, and I enjoy that time. I enjoy, being able to be around him as much as possible. And sometimes I feel guilty when I'm like, I got to go to the gym, and I know I can take him. Modify my workout with him on my back as I'm doing like bear crawls and stuff today. Like today's a really hard day but I feel bad leaving him because I know I can take him. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's that kind of little stress. But it definitely gives me a lot of motivation. I as far as training goes, because he's there watching me the entire time. As far as fights goes, I'm going to go out there and do my job regardless. But I guess it does give me a little bit extra motivation when he comes to the gym with me and he's there watching or mimicking me and doing the same thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot of fun when they're, you see some of the fighters taking their kids there and they start doing some of the moves too,
Oh yeah, he'll get in the ring and he'll start moving around. I'm like, you want to fight? And he's like, yeah, but I got to take my shirt off. He has to take his shirt off because dad doesn't wear a shirt.
Yeah.
Like he said, he has fight and didn't wear their shirt, so he has to take his shirt off. So it's super cute.
Amazing. And speaking of that, do you so what do you prefer? Like, I know because there's a lot of preparation on both sides when anybody's getting ready for a fight. So do you and Jakar like to stagger fights, or do you prefer being on the same card, or maybe like one a couple weeks out? What is their preference?
I feel this is our first time that we've had overlapping camps that turned into overlapping camps because he didn't fight. And then I didn't fight. Like it's been a kind of a crazy year with us.
Yeah.
I would prefer us to be a little bit separated just because my job doesn't change of being a mom and a wife and a fighter when he's in camp, but when he's in camp, it changes. You know what I mean? The dads have a little bit more, I got to go train, I got to do this. It's a little bit different. So when I'm trying to do all of that at once, like prepare him for his fight and me for my fight and take care of the family, it gets a little bit overwhelming. I can do it. I've done it. But I prefer it to be like I'm in camp and then he's in camp so I can focus more of my time on him. And then also Kingston. It's kind of unfair when we're both in camps and we're dragging him everywhere. And although he enjoys it, I personally don't like it.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have staggering camps than overlapping camps or camps at the same time. Luckily, we haven't had camps at the exact same time where we're fighting on the same card. We just had overlapping camps.
Yeah, so it gives a little bit of that that break as well too, because the amount of attention it takes from all the coaches and everyone on anybody fighting, right? And the amount of attention you showed your car leading up to a fight. I mean, that's huge, and I can see if you're on the same card, I know. And I think it'd be different for a husband and wife than it is for some brothers to, maybe fight on a card as well too. Like, it's just different. I know without my wife, like she takes care of me in so many aspects, right, outside of fighting. So I can only imagine if it was something that, one day where you have to have that kind of energy in one place, right? It takes a lot of attention from people.
And we're together all the time. Like it literally would be you and your wife together all the time, training and, going through the ups and downs of camp and the ups and downs of life, and then still coming home to each other. I feel like brothers and sisters and stuff, they go home to a separate house. They might train together, they might be in the same sport, they might be fighting on the same card, but they're probably not living together.
Yeah.
They probably have separate lives outside of that. They go home to, we got to go home to each other, and it's like, I'm not ready to strangle you right now. Like,
yeah.
We're going to get some rounds in the garage real quick.
Yeah. That's a really good point. So where does the name Cast Iron come from?
It was given to me. I have a traditional name that was given to me from one of my teammates. We would do round robin kind of rounds. I was the smallest person only girl in the gym in El Paso, and the smallest by like maybe 50 pounds. I think the smallest guy fought at 45 maybe, and he hadn't fought for a long time, so he's big. And we do round robin rounds, and you'd have to stay in. Another new person would come in, another new guy would come in, and this really big guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was like, "You're like a little cast iron skillet. You just get thrown in the fire and just keep coming back unscathed." And I'm like, well, man, I got to like earn my keep over here. Like, so that, and it stuck. It just stuck. And it just happened that it flowed with my name, and that was it.
Yeah, the best nicknames are typically given by others, right? Because it means something there. You got the name for a reason as well too, right? So. Yeah. And that's pretty incredible having to put up with that. I mean, I'm sure it gives you more confidence going into the cage. Like, listen, I roll around with 200-pound men. Like, I think I can handle this as well too, right? So that's pretty cool. So I know I asked you your toughest fight with JoJo. What was the most memorable UFC experience you've had, whether it's in the cage, the walkout? What do you think the most memorable UFC or MMA moment in general you've had?
I would probably think the fight with Randa Marcos, the 202 fight. I had just got off my first win in the UFC, and I think it was like 4 weeks prior. I know the turnaround was super quick. I remember them like Shelby calling me and was like, "Hey, do you want to fight 202?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll fight 202." Because I knew that was a Conor McGregor fight. I mean, the Conor Diaz fight. And then I got the contract, signed it, and then I looked at the date and I was like, "Man, that's 2 weeks of training and then fight week." Like, I didn't even know. And I was like, "Man, all right." So. And then finishing Randa in the first round. She never had been finished before. I think she had never been submitted, I think it was. And I ended up submitting her and things like that. So I think that was like the most memorable fight.
And did you like that? Because it was such a quick turnaround. How do you feel about that? Because I know sometimes with the weight cutting, it can be difficult on a month, but you're already in fight shape. Did you find that easier to go in? You like, hey, I'm not injured. I'm ready to fight. How did you feel that was?
I thought it was going to be easy, but it wasn't. It was actually I remember that one being one of my tougher weight cuts at 115, just because it was so quick of a turnaround. And after getting that first win, I just kind of had like a sense of relief because I was coming off of 2 losses. Although I had 2 fight of the nights, like I needed a win, like I needed a win. Then I got that win, so it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. And then, so I kind of went in a different mindset, I guess you could say, not thinking I was going to get a fight right away. And then I got a fight right away. So it was just it's just different. It's just a little bit different. I think my body was tired. I think it would be different. Like me, when I fought, it wasn't as quick of a turnaround, but when I fought my first fight at 25 and then I went and fought Jillian, that turnaround time, it was easier for me because I knew that, like, I told him, like, hey, I want a quick turnaround instead of just getting a quick turnaround, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I had mentally prepared myself to stay in shape and not kind of go in that lull of a lifestyle for a little bit. Even, I mean, people are like, yeah, but it was only like 3 days. And I was like, yeah, but those 3 days are 3 days of like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm sitting on the couch. You know, I'm just taking in anything and everything at this point.
I'm re-eating, yeah.
Bring in the chips and the bread. Bring it in.
100%. That's, you know, and you deserve that after a fight too. So people don't realize that who've not competed in either wrestling or mixed martial arts and don't have to worry about that, right? And like you said, it's always more difficult. Like being a female just for cutting weight, and you know, it's just a different body. And then some people can cut weight easier, some people can't. So that definitely makes a difference. Who are some of your favorite fighters that you either like to emulate in and out of the UFC? Favorite fighters besides your car? Who do you enjoy watching the most?
I've always really enjoyed watching Cowboy Cerrone. Like I've always really enjoyed watching him. Back in the WEC days, one of my favorite fighters, just because he was a good striker and he was really good off of his back. You know, jiu-jitsu wise. And I kind of was the same kind of way. I still pretty much am. So yeah, Donald Cerrone. I always love watching JJ fight Joanna. She's always a fun one to fight. But yeah, and back in the day, I can't think of anyone else. Yeah, I think those two are like the main ones that I really enjoy watching. I mean, I love watching all fights, but I always watch Donald Cerrone fight.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't think a lot of people, especially newer fans, know how good he is. You showed it in a couple. He's shown it in a couple recent fights, but how good he is off his back, really, you know, and on top or on his back, because he's so, you know, known for his stand up and, you know, go out there and bang it out. But he's actually like he's so skilled on the ground and. You know, like you said, he's shown it in the WEC days, but a lot of newer fans are more, you know, they know the UFC, right? So, now, Valentina Shevchenko, what are your thoughts on her? And right now, obviously, she's been extremely dominant at 125. And do you see any areas where, you know, she's not dominant? It looked like her wrestling in the previous fight, but then she came out and basically told everyone, no, that's not an issue for me. So, what are your thoughts on her?
She's good. She's a champ for a reason. You know, she's a champ for a reason. I think she's just one of those type of people that can always find a way to win. And she I feel like she figures that out in camp. Like, oh, this is how I'm going to win this fight, and she pretty much goes out and does it. Like Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes is one. She can win the fight anywhere. You know what I mean? I feel like the same way. For Shevchenko, she can win the fight anywhere, and she's just one of those people that can always find a way to win. And she does it in such a dominating fashion that, like you said, it like overshadows everything. Like, oh, well, maybe this fight I can take her down. Oh, I'll use my wrestling. And then the next person comes in and she just totally trashes them in wrestling. And you're just like, okay, well, definitely can't stand with her. You know what I mean? Like, I think maybe for me, when I watch her fight, I feel like maybe like a dirty boxing kind of style would be something where you'd want to fight her at. You don't want to stay in that kick range of her. You don't want to stay in that punching range. So maybe like a dirty boxing kind of style up against the cage and defending her, you know, her clinch and her takedowns. But she's so strong. I mean, Jessica Andrade is a strong girl, like a really strong girl. And for her to just throw her around like that, you're like, man, she must be really strong. But when you see her at the PI, she's not that big. She's not one of the 125ers. You're like, man, that's a big 125er. She's a little bit smaller and she holds her weight really well. So you just don't think she's that strong, but she's really strong. But yeah, I would say maybe I haven't seen anyone really dirty boxer. So that's the only thing I can think of. Is someone just getting in, dirty boxing her and getting out. Like Joanna had a good showing with her, a lot of fast punches, but I feel like still they come from Muay Thai backgrounds where they kind of still stay on the outside. But I feel like Joanna got the better of her when they would go in and she would throw a lot more punches and then get out. So I feel like that's why I feel like a dirty boxing kind of style might be something.
Yeah, yeah, really.
So good.
She's very impressive. And then even her, her two losses, split this, I think both split decision against Amanda Nunes. And, but Joanna, you're right. Like, I was thinking about that too, because when she came up from 115, first of all, unbelievable of her to take a fight in the situation she was in, even though everybody knows how good she is, to come off that fight with, a couple fights with Rose and then jump up afterwards. It's like, she'll fight anybody. It was impressive to see. And I know she fought her before in Muay Thai boxing. And, same thing there. You saw her power in that fight, but Joanna would be definitely a smaller. I know they're both. Do you find that difficult as well? Like, do you wish there was a 120-pound division? Do you like the?
I feel like a 120-pound division, or even a 130-pound division. Like, I feel like when they got that 135-pound division, they built that division around Ronda. So there was a lot of 25ers that moved up, and obviously there's not a lot of 45ers. So then once that division started getting big, and then they opened up the 115-pound division, then you had people like Andrade and stuff like that drop all the way down to 115. Then they made this 125-pound division, where I feel like that's probably like the strongest division as far as like solid, as far as how many fighters they have and how much quality fighters they have. A little trickle of 25ers that could go up to 35, but you had a lot of smaller 35ers that just couldn't make 25, So I feel like the 30-pound division would be nice, and then maybe just make that 105-pound division. Because once they open that 105-pound division for women, it's going to be insane. Yeah. And I know how people are like, oh, but they're so small, like, that's like the men's 125-pound division. There's not going to be a lot of things. I was like, no. Have you seen 125-pound girls go at it? Like, they're either striking machines or, like, submission machines. They're just going after it. So, like, I feel like if they get that 105-pound division, that would change the game a lot.
Yeah.
You have a lot of 115ers, that used to be 105ers and that were champs at 105 that are doing well at 115. Like, so those girls might go down, those girls might stay, so I don't know. Be interesting. But I think a 130-pound division would be better than maybe like a 120-pound division.
Yeah, fair. That makes sense.
You bring more 35ers to 20 and more 25ers up to 30, or kind of still be a real good matchup instead of, I don't know. That's my thoughts.
No, you're absolutely right. It's a tough one, too, because I know Dana's been against adding more weight divisions in there, and rightfully so. It's tough to build divisions, but, with boxing, you have so many weight classes that you see those crossover fights, 5 pounds here and there, but, to make the jump from, 55 to 170 is huge, and like in the male division, and then, going from 185 to 205, it's a massive jump. Like, you have Weidman, for instance, is not a small middleweight, and he looked tiny in there at his only fight against the main event tonight. He looked small at light heavyweight, right? It wasn't right for his body there, right? So, okay. So what do you do? I know you're very busy outside of the octagon, just running a family. But what do you do for fun outside of fighting, if anything? Do you have any hobbies outside of fighting that you enjoy?
Hobbies outside of fighting. I just love spending time with my family. I like to cook. Okay. I guess. I cook. I bake. And I cook. Yeah, but I eat it for my friends and my family. So I just like being around people. I enjoy people's company and having positive people around me. So, our house is normally the house where everyone comes over and watches fights, and, we make food, and we have summer times coming, so we'll have pool parties and things like that. So I just like having people around me and cooking for people and making people happy. But other than that, I would just say cooking, maybe like pictures, like taking pictures and stuff.
Nice. Do you are you a hardcore, like a lot of fighters don't watch a lot of fights, which I always find surprising. But do you watch like every Saturday night pretty much? Are you watching almost every card, or how does that?
Yeah, pretty much. Now that, a lot of them have been more free, so I watch a lot more free fight.
Yeah.
But me and Jakar enjoy watching the fights. We normally always have someone on, like a friend that we know, or someone that we trained with, or someone that we just really like on a pay-per-view, so we normally end up getting it. But, it's not like, oh man, the fights are on this weekend, we gotta watch them. We gotta change oh no, we can't go do that, we gotta watch the fights. Like, if something else pops up, we'll obviously go do that. but yeah, and again, we like watching fights because we like having our friends over.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. Like I say that a lot, just because I've been following the sport. Obviously, you guys are much closer, and you get in, everybody so well in there, much better than I would or a spectator would. But even I get emotional watching. So you don't want to see either people lose sometimes. So I can imagine that's just watching them. It's got a push and pull feeling to it sometimes, right? So
yeah, a little bit.
yeah, it can be tough, but. No, okay. So, what are your plans? I got just one more question, and then I'll finish it off with something else. But what are your plans over the next 12 months? I know you talked about wanting to have a child, and so what are your thoughts over the next 12 months? You wanted another fight, a couple fights, or what are your plans around that? And then outside of the octagon,
we're going on vacation next week, and then when we come back, we're pretty much preparing ourselves to go back into camp. I don't think Jakar's planning on fighting until August, September. I mean, we still got to make sure he gets cleared for all that. And then for me, I was planning on fighting like July, August, so like right before him. And then I think this is going to be the time that we actually are going to, take steps into extending our family. Like I said, this year's been kind of crazy and ups and downs with fights happening, fights not happening, it's just a lot of time and a lot of money lost that we've had this year. So we kind of got to reset. And so hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be able to reset and we'll be able to start planning for, early next year.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, I know, and it's an unfortunate situation. I saw that Jakar got at least his fight pay, but you guys, you're going in there expecting to win, of course, I'm sure, and then potentially a fight of the night bonus too. So, I'm sure it's, it'll be up from here for sure. But did you, do you have plans of coming back to fighting? I know Misha Tate's coming back. You've had actually a lot of success stories from people having kids and then coming back in older ages than yourself as well too. Do you plan on coming back to fight? Yeah, I
definitely plan on coming back afterwards.
Nice.
It's just, I mean, again, we got to prepare our bodies to have a baby.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of time. And then obviously, I want to make sure that I'm there for my child as much as possible, but I definitely do plan on coming back. I mean, if it's in the stars and I don't have to go back to fighting, then that's great too. But I enjoy fighting. It's definitely something that I love to do. So if I can continue to fight in the UFC, that would be great. If it is what it is, but I definitely enjoy my job at the UFC. I definitely think that, I'm always right there. Like I said, I've never been beaten up. My record might not be the best, but I do have a lot of names on my record, and I got a lot of fights that could have gone either way. So hopefully, I get a couple more wins and I can, make another stamp on my name. Like, all right, we'll keep her around a little bit longer and I'll just keep my run going in the UFC. But, at the end of the day, it is a business for them. So I got to understand that aspect as well. But, I do love my job. I love being part of, that UFC family and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully everything works out.
No, for sure. And I mean, you're all, like you said, all your fights have been extremely competitive. It's not like you're getting blown out of the water by any means. And Angela Hill's at the top of the division, and you got to win over her as well too. And not too long ago. So I mean, yeah, the UFC and listen, if they know they can count on you to take short notice fights as well too. I don't think I watched a bunch of your fights leading up to this as well too, and you're always extremely competitive, even on those close losses, right? So. They can go either way, and I think the hardcores they know that, right? So, all right, and thank you so much. Do you have any last words, sponsors, or anything that you wanted to say to end this off? Or
sponsors, 8-Man, Zebra Mats, they always help us out. Been lucky to be able to train in our garage because they helped us out through the pandemic with getting this mat. So huge shout out to Zebra Mats, X Endurance supplements. Other than that, yeah, that's it. Those are my people. Combat Corner, they always make the best gear, so I'm happy that they've been with me for a long time. My manager, Danny, and other than that, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for putting up with the technical difficulties. I'm sure we'll get it figured out. And thank you for being the first episode on Inside Fighting. I don't know if you used to know InsideFighting.com was a old media site. And so, I know. Yeah. So I picked up the domain a few months back, and we're going to be launching the site next week with the first few interviews, and I'm excited to bring it back and bring some more MMA media to Canada now that we got Ariel, who's kind of crossed over a bit to the States. Still a Canadian representative, still amazing, right?
Yeah,
but
100% Canadian representative.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we still got him. But I appreciate that so much. I know we have Jakar on soon, so thanks again, and good luck have fun on your vacation, and good luck on your upcoming bout, whenever that is.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Awesome, Cortney. Take care.